Let's see. It's preparing. I think we're live. All right, I'm going to assume we're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Scott Skiba. I'm the Executive Artistic Director for Cleveland Opera Theater. It's my pleasure today to host Page to Stage and welcome back Kathryn Frady from Marble City Opera, and welcome for the first time Brandon Gibson of Marble City Opera. We've all known each other for a number of years. First all met working with Marble City, doing Suites by Kate. Brandon introduced me to one of my favorite terms, Friday Eve. I'd like to petition for a Friday Eve as well. But so thank you both for being here, for taking time to be on Page to Stage. In this series, we talk about bringing work literally from the page to the stage. We've talked with designers, directors, producers, managers. We've got critics and all in so far and so forth, all involved and coming up in the series. So, can you tell us before we start talking about your new opera in development, which I'm really excited to talk about? Can you talk a little bit about Marble City, the work that you do? Brandon is managing director, Kathryn is executive director, and just how that brings work from the page to the stage.
Well, Marble City Opera is an opera company that has always been producing new works in interesting venues, or more traditional works in interesting venues. But we mainly perform in non-traditional venues. And so that's a lot of fun, and that's one of the ways that we take the opera and make it more accessible for a new audience. We're always trying to find topics and pieces that can engage the community in a new way. Yeah, Brandon, do you have anything to add?
We really try to add to the experience, really bring the full experience to our audiences, because a lot of people are used to hearing an opera singer maybe from 50, 100 feet away. And that's one thing. With us, when we use our smaller, more intimate venues, they're really able to experience what it's like to have someone hit that high C right next to them and realize that's not a microphone, that's just skill and talent and the human body at work. And
Yeah.
so it really takes some of the sheen, I think, off of opera and makes it more accessible to people. Lets them know that it's not a party trick, but an actual thing that people work on, and a legitimate profession. I think all of us can say at some point, you tell someone, oh, I'm an opera singer, and they ask you, oh, I love Phantom. And they think about any number of things, but they have no idea what that actually means.
Yeah.
So one of the beautiful things about what we do, it really does show people, oh wow, that's what that means.
Yeah.
That's how that feels. And in doing that, like she said, different venues, every show we try to pick a venue that matches whatever story that we're trying to tell with that particular piece. And it's a beautiful thing when it all comes together. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. No, we had 2 weeks ago we had Eric Einhorn on from OnSite Opera, and their specialty as a company is site specific. Now you all do site specific, but you also do alternative venue, immersive. Like, what is your process? I've been part of productions and seen productions all in different venues. Some are literally site specific, and some are immersive. So how do you go through choosing venues, and how do you determine what gets a treatment as something that'll be specific to its location versus something that's specific to the kind of experience you can create?
That's a great question. I think that sometimes I allow venues to inspire a production. And sometimes there's a production that I really, really want to do that I'm looking for the perfect venue for. So for instance, Postcard from Morocco, I thought was a really cool piece that I had come across when I was looking for operas that we might be able to do. And I thought this would be perfect in a train station. And I just wanted to produce it in a train station. And so I kind of just waited until the train station was available. And we said, okay, we have a train station. Let's do this production. And then, with Traviata, it went through various locations. Originally, we had a lot of success putting La Femme Boheme in a nightclub. And so I thought that Traviata could go in that direction as well. And then it just, through conversations and looking at venues around town, Westwood, historic Westwood became the place to do it when it became even more site specific in a more traditional way, still being non-traditional. And so I think it kind of depends on the piece, that we're performing. When we did the Telephone in Lavoie, for instance, we could have performed that in somebody's house, but then we wouldn't have as much space for audience, right? So we took a piece like that and put it in a non-traditional venue like the Square Room to make it more intimate and accessible.
Nice.
And so sometimes it is just as simple as matching it up to kind of the subject matter of the piece. Sometimes, though, we find something that's kind of a blank space that lets us tell whatever story we want to tell. And so it kind of fits with whatever the story is.
Yeah. Kathryn and I just had one of those experiences in Cleveland at Red Space, blank canvas, and had a lot of fun there. But I'm sorry, Kathryn, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, for Shadowlight, we were looking for, which is the world premiere we just did in February, we were looking for a space that had all white walls because Buford Delaney was in an insane asylum, and B, then we could project and create the environment that we wanted to create, with the walls and on the costumes that we put them in all white. But also the venue that we found was next door to where Buford Delaney grew up. So as I go through and look, exactly. And so kind of as we look for venues and we find these places, typically it's like you walk in and you hear a story like, oh, Buford Delaney lived right next door and there's all white walls. It's like, okay, well, we're performing here. Okay, great.
like it was made for you. Right?
Exactly.
How does it, as an executive director and as managing director, how does that collaboration work? Brandon, do you bring things to Kathryn and say, hey, we should do this, and she's like, yes, or vice versa? Or do you say, we're going to do this production, let's each go on our personal scavenger hunts, and then we'll get together over a beverage and chat? Like, what's the process like?
Kathryn is the idea person, definitely the idea person, but she'll bring an idea and I'll say, okay, how can we make this work? Or how can't we make this work? And we go from there. And so we're in communication constantly, whether she's here in town or abroad. And it's really just that kind of exchanging ideas and saying, okay, how can this work logistically? How many people can we get in there? How can we advertise it? When is it available? How much does it cost? That sort of thing. So I tend to be boots on the ground and she tends to be ideas, but
Kathryn has some pretty fierce boots too, so I don't know.
Not to be on the ground.
They're made for walking. I don't know what you're talking about. I do always wait for Brandon to say, I support it. Once Brandon says, I support it, I'm like, yes.
There's a process. And then I'm like, okay, I'm with you.
He's like, okay. I do have to convince him sometimes.
Sometimes. Oh yeah, that's all right. Just from favorite foods and beverages. So not that I believe there's an art to administration and management. So not that all of us and all of we and collective everybody who does management aren't artists, because there definitely is, in my opinion, art to that. But you also both are performing artists, and I think you've worked with this company in that aspect too. So how did you come to performing? Then how did you discover your passion and talent for management?
Wow, that's a big question.
I know we should have too early in the day.
Well, I came to performing from a very early age. I studied piano at 10, and then I actually started playing the flute at 12. And always loved to sing. I probably came out of the womb singing, but I didn't actually I sang in church and did some plays, when I was in middle school, and I always loved theater as well. So I was really interested in musical theater, but I had never studied voice in high school or before I went to college. So I went to college on a flute scholarship. And then started taking voice lessons my freshman year. And by the end of my freshman year, I was double majoring in flute and voice. So that's kind of how I came to performing.
You
And
can do your
then,
own mad scene. You could be singing Lucia and playing, and then singing and playing.
right? It's my dream.
Have
That's
you done
another
it
idea
yet,
I have. No, but I have
Brandon? So I'm
another
going to pitch you
idea.
this idea, Brandon.
Throw this on the next season now.
We've got a great insane asylum near me. We will put it all together and Marble City on tour.
Oh, I love how that casually came up in conversation. The insane asylum right down the road. It's great.
It's ready for me, you know.
There you go.
So, what about you, Brandon? How did you come to
Oh, man.
performing and get into management?
Oh, and I always sung my entire life, in church growing up as a kid and everything, but never organized until, oh man, what was it? So, fun fact, I was afraid, i.e. terrified, to sing in front of girls when I was a little kid. And so I remember thinking I'm good at singing and walking into choir auditions. There was a room full of girls in the fourth grade. And I turned around and said, nope, and walked out. And that could have been the end. But later that semester, our music teacher, you have music just in general in elementary school, had broken her foot. And she was wheeling around in a wheelchair because it was better than crutching around the classroom trying to teach us all. And we were singing just some random song. And she stopped her wheelchair in front of me and said, hey, do you want to be in choir? And I said, do I have to audition? And she said, no, just show up. And I said, okay. And here we are. From then on, I was always in choir in school and moved around a bunch, military brat, but always sung and was always in choir. And I got to high school and just kind of said, oh, I'm good at choir. What's that about? And then what?
Then I roped Brandon into working for Marble City Opera.
Yeah, how did that
But
happen?
I have this idea. I have this idea, Brandon.
Just kind of around, right place, right time. Opera teacher's like, hey, Brandon, you want to come and be in the opera? I said, sure, Mr. Freeman, Carol Freeman at the time. And that was that. And Kathryn, one day, I think right after Sweets by Kate, said, hey, do you want to be my managing director for Marble City Opera? I said, what does that mean? She said, oh, we'll figure it out. I said, okay. And here we are.
Awesome. Well, you're doing well. I mean, winning great praise, awesome productions. I think, when was the last one? Was it a year ago? A year and a half ago? Oh, geez. We were all in masks, and it was at a museum.
Oh, Nero.
Nero monologues. Yes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Which congratulations, Sarah taught them that. They just had their first baby. Congratulations.
Yay, congratulations. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing all that insight. And it's great. It's always interesting to know everybody's journey and how they come to it, and what they bring to it in that experience. So, I saw your Facebook post. Was it 2 weeks ago for this powerful new opera, I Can't Breathe? And so reached out and said, hey, come on Page to Stage. I want to know more, want the audience to know more, raise awareness, and talk about that project. So tell us, each of you share, how did this come to be?
Well, it was literally basically what I wrote in my Facebook post. I woke up Wednesday morning and, to the news of George Floyd's death, and was just reading some information about prison labor and how they are being used. And this has been something sort of weighing on me for several months. I saw the movie Just Mercy in February when it came out. And it's all about a black man in Alabama who is wrongly accused and put on death row. And fortunately, the lawyer just fights for this man and, helps him survive and get out of prison. But I was just after seeing that movie, I just was like, I have to go become a lawyer. Like, I'm not doing enough with my life as an artist to help people. And I just became kind of consumed with that idea that I'm not doing enough, that I need to do more to help people. And the same sort of feeling came over me again 2 weeks ago. And I was just like, thinking out loud, and I again said I needed to be a lawyer, and I was like, I have to do something to help people. I was like, but this is what we need an opera about. Maybe we can do something with an opera to help educate people and to move the movement forward, to help. And so I sort of started like throwing some ideas out, and we had done a piece called Ghost of Crosstown a few years ago at Marble City Opera that I directed and Brandon sang in, and it was made up of monodramas. And so I thought, what if we created a story about these men as ghosts, with monodramas strung together? And in that way, it could also be built upon an idea that the smallest opera company could produce it, or the largest, and so we came, and so I wrote to Brandon about 5 minutes into my idea, and said, I have an idea.
True to form. And
beautiful. So this mirrors our process.
Exactly.
So, Brandon,
Exactly.
how did you receive it? What did you say was your response?
My immediate answer was yes. She said, I think we should have an opera about this. And then she said, do you want to write it? And I said, I've never done it before, but I will give it a shot, because it immediately spoke to me. With everything going on in my quote unquote free time, I'm a bit of an essayist. And so these things, come up, and the way that I organize my emotions and feelings about them best is usually to sit down and write 2,000 words about. And by the end of it, I've parceled out how I feel about the event. And in that day, with George Floyd, I found myself kind of without anything else to say, because it had come immediately on the heels of Breonna Taylor, and also immediately on the heels of Ahmaud Arbery. And, I've only got so many in me within, I think it was a 2-week span. And so I kind of felt myself wordless. And when she said an opera, I said yes immediately, because these are stories that need to be told. And this is something that art should serve as a reflection of major events and life in general. And so it immediately felt right, important to me. I said, never done it before, but boom, give it a shot. And
Brandon is an excellent writer. I mean, if you've ever followed Brandon Gibson on Facebook, you know that he's an excellent writer. He's a storyteller at heart. So asking him to write the libretto just like made the perfect sense to me.
And so kind of my idea from there, like I said, never done it before, but by the end of the week, I had an idea for all of the characters, all of the stories that we would have, because the tragedy of all of these is that their life isn't defined by the fact that they were killed by the police. They were living a full life before. These are stories of just people, and they are only connected in the tragedy of their deaths. And so the format really fit perfectly, each one being a monodrama. And so we're just going through and telling their stories. And I saw in that a great opportunity to reflect on, there are lots of different theories as to why this goes on. Some say respectability, politics, and some say, socioeconomic conditions and various other things. But in having all of these separate characters, we have the opportunity to show they live their lives this way, and it still happened. They live their life this way, and it still happened. They live their life this way, and it still happened. And you get to see how it's all connected and how senseless it all still is, because regardless of whether they were an angel, something in between, a devil, they still met the same unceremonious end. And we have a lot of opportunity there, not only in storytelling and reflecting on the crisis of the moment, but also to tell the story of Black lives. Black lives matter, but you can't have that phrase without having Black lives. Right. And so with each of these characters, we have an opportunity to tell the story of a fully realized Black life that mattered until all of a sudden it didn't. And so that's where we are 2 weeks in, but that's where we are, and that's where the project is beginning.
Yeah.
So that's where all the work is stemming from at this point. We have we have our format and everything, and all of our characters and that sort of thing
Hmm.
worked out. And with the idea, she said we wanted it to be able to scale to either be a handful of singers or as many singers as you can get together. And so we figured in parts for either a chorus, or it could be, the other singers when they're not singing their individual part, they can, kind of chime in as the chorus. And we've also worked in parts for dancers to be used as supernumeraries, or even as the actors and the kind of play around them, which is also important to us, so that you can have multiple elements. Opera's at its best when it's collaborating with other art forms,
Right.
and you can have dance and theater and music all together to tell these stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's what's so powerful about opera. I mean, it's the culmination, and it brings all art forms
Exactly.
in an inclusive way, in a necessary way, and it's sort of the most powerful storytelling gesture we can make as humans.
Yeah,
So
and I think that one of the reasons also, that we did the monodramas is that then it can also be performed as like a 10 or 15-minute aria or performance. Each one of these characters can have their own life outside of the opera,
mhm.
so that they can be performed in schools or in outreach programs in the libraries, like basically anywhere, or you can do the full performance where they're strung together and have the ensemble that comes in at the end. So
Yeah.
really excited about it.
I mean, it sounds incredibly powerful, exciting, necessary. I'm excited to see it develop. I want to bring it to Cleveland.
Okay.
So let's,
You
yeah,
on the tour. There we go.
Done.
yeah, yeah, and let's be in touch too if there's anything we can do to help it, help in any way, or just be an ear, or hey, check this out, thoughts about it, or anything like that. I mean, me, creating, developing, producing new work is my passion. It's what drives me in all the things I do, and especially something as relevant and necessary as this. So I hope to bring it. That would be amazing, and we could
Yeah.
look at all those different ways.
Definitely.
Take it to all CMSD, build awareness, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and then
Yeah, yeah.
feature it in NowFest or a standalone thing, something like that. So
Awesome. Yeah.
Definitely.
yeah. So how right now? What's two questions? How long is the work? Like, if you did it in its entirety? What's the scope? Is it 90 minutes, 2 hours?
Shooting for about 90 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah. We have 6 characters, 4 men and 2 women, actually. We wanted to add the ability to include both genders as well in the opera. So we have a mother character and a girlfriend,
Oh, wow.
and that get to tell their story. So yeah, about 90 minutes each monodrama, being a certain length and then tied together. We've talked about possibly through drums. We've talked about possibly having different composers for each, but we have talked to one composer already about composing it who's interested. So yeah, it's exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean last week we featured Enkiro Okoye and David Cody's Invitation to a Die-In, and they created that piece as a response to Trayvon Martin, and it was very powerful the way they crafted it. It's one baritone singing about that experience, and then each orchestra member is shot. So it ends
Oh,
with
wow.
yeah, it's on. You can find it or go to Nkiru's page. Really powerful piece. Just in a similar. It made me think of sort of a similar style of delivery in terms of retrospective and talking about life and living. So I'm I'm saddened that it is necessary, but I'm so happy that you're creating this because it is necessary.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah,
What's the point
we
of
appreciate
having
your
an opera
support.
company if you don't tackle the issues, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, what's the point of being an
Opera's hard enough already, so we can take it on. So in quarantine, as we're closing here, a lot of people have done lots of things that make me feel like I'm complete failure, like, reinventing themselves, and they're super in shape, and they've learned to bake, and they've learned to do these things. Like, oh wow, I haven't done anything. So what have you all done? Have you, learned to bake incredibly hard things or developed a new life skill? What's quarantine been like?
I've learned how to video edit, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brandon. Actually, Brandon cooks a lot.
I was going to say I already knew how to bake, but it was one of those fairly time consuming, and I'm usually on the go, so
Yeah.
I've just baked more.
What's
And
your
cooked
what's your,
very
your
well.
masterpiece?
Oh, we talked about that. Master interviewer that he is. My main thing that I bake is cheesecakes. I make a mean
I know.
cheesecake.
I hear you. There's a secret recipe, but we can't really access that. So maybe.
Master interviewer. Oh, came around full circle. I wondered how he'd fit it in, but there we go.
So we got it
I'll
all.
never tell. I'll never tell. There's a
That's
secret.
okay. There was Meister David Efron. He had his mom's cheesecake recipe. We were talking about cheesecake one day, it was 15-ish years ago, and so he brought it in. He's like, if you lose it, I'm gonna come after you. And it was on this note card. It was her recipe, and I was like, oh my gosh, can I just write it down? He's like, no, just take it and do it. So I treated that with care. So I respect the cheesecake. So maybe
Yeah.
maybe I could at least try it at some point. That would be good.
There you go. There's a wait list, but
Okay.
I'll enter name.
I'll get. Can I add my name now? So maybe like 2024, I can.
Exactly.
It's
That's
like-
about how long it takes.
Okay, I feel that.
Is it a traditional cheesecake, Brandon, or do you do different flavors?
I do different flavors, whatever the mood strikes. I made one peach cobbler cheesecake for a friend, made a turtle
Ooh.
cheesecake for a friend, everything between.
I'm
So
feeling like a Marble City
Left
Opera
out.
fundraiser here.
you're on the wait list too. It just takes a while. It's only been 7 years, Kathryn. You gotta put your time in.
I'm thinking of another opera about Brandon Gibson who bakes cheesecakes, and then we can have him bake the cheesecakes during the opera, so we can all have
Those are
multiple
different
cheesecakes.
rates.
I like it. I am into food and drink and opera immersive experiences. So this is
Hmm
speaking my language here.
We'll work-
Brandon, do you support
work
it?
I think you all are breaking up. Actually, this
Oh,
my
yeah,
HP is going out.
Trouble signal.
Really? I'm just gonna sit really still and say that I froze.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on to Page to Stage and chatting today. Maybe we can have you back on when it's as it's rolled forward a little bit. Check in, see how it's going. Maybe Brandon can just tease us with maybe 1 or 2 lines of the recipe, and with a secret decoder ring. Well, thank you both. I hope you have a great Wednesday. Thanks for everybody for tuning in to Page to Stage, and be well, be safe, and we will find a way through all this. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.